Hello and welcome to the 2020 Political Forum presented by the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce. My name is Brian Wazina and I'm the president of the Chamber. Thank you for joining us. The Rocky Hill Chamber is proud to present this program to help get information out to the voters. We're recording the forum in 4 separate interviews, which are all available online at rhchamber.org. This year, we've decided to do things virtually instead of in the studio, and each candidate is joining me by video chat from wherever they are today. Today, we're joined by Henry Vasel, candidate for Connecticut's 29th district in the State House of Representatives. This district covers all of Rocky Hill and parts of Newington and Wethersfield. Henry, I'd like to start off by hearing a little bit about you, and can you tell our audience about your background and how you ended up here today running for office?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Vasel, and I'm running for State Representative District 29. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce, first of all, Community TV, and all of you for taking the time to listen to the candidate views. I have been endorsed by the Republican and independent parties as the voice of reason. I listen to my constituents. Supporters tell me I have the best background and skill set to be the voice of District 29 at the Capitol. I am a small business owner with a bachelor's degree in finance from Central Connecticut State University. I've spent the last 20 plus years serving Rocky Hill and surrounding towns as a volunteer firefighter. I'm the vice president of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, an organization which helps promote small business. I serve as the president of the Rocky Hill Education Foundation, which helps raise funds to support our schools. You've probably seen me around town as I live in Rocky Hill. Most importantly, I'm the only candidate for District 29 that supports our police. Please go to Henry Vasel for State Rep on Facebook or henryforstaterep.com to learn more or ask questions. Thank you.
Let's start right off with some budget questions. 2021 is a budget year. The state is projected to have a deficit of over $2 billion in each of the next 2 budget cycles. Tax revenue is projected to be down from businesses as well as income tax from employees. How do you propose we balance the budget? And can we do it without raising taxes on businesses that are already struggling from the effects of the pandemic?
Great, thank you. That's a great question. In order for us to balance the budget without making cuts, we need to reopen the state, which is the most important issue for business. As a first responder, I have personally seen shortages of personal protective equipment. With the proper supply of personal protective equipment, we can operate as a state and keep our workers working. More than 97% of business in Connecticut is small business, employing about 50% of the workforce. Through small business thriving and contributing, we can come closer to reducing our deficit while supporting our local towns, residents, and youth sports. We need to keep our seniors in Connecticut. They're being taxed at rates causing them to leave. We also need to limit spending to economic growth levels. Government should be measured in terms of the economy and how its size relates to private sector activity. Spending should be limited from growing faster than the cost of living. The state needs to adhere to an earmark ban, which directs funds to specific projects and bypasses competitive bidding. By not doing this, it only allows for a lower quality, higher cost product. We could reduce costs by having programs such as regional dispatch. In the fire department, we have a program called Task Force 51. When dispatched and activated, Cromwell takes over as dispatch for Rocky Hill, Cromwell, Newington, Wethersfield, and Berlin. Let's publish state contracts online and in real time, making them easier to view. A transparent portal can cut waste, identify inefficiencies, and allow taxpayers to be fiscal watchdogs. I will not support hidden taxes such as tolls. These types of taxes can be easily manipulated and distorts economic activity, leading to less growth than if government acted within its own domain. Thank you. And for any more information, please visit me on my website, henryforstaterep.com, as we're limited to answers of about 2 minutes. Thank you.
Now, Connecticut has been one of the more aggressive states when it comes to shutting down businesses and schools during the pandemic. Do you think the governor is doing a good job with the shutdown? And what kind of support can be provided to the industries that have not been allowed to open up at all since March? And if positive cases are on the rise again, is our only choice to shut down the state again?
I do not believe so. The current state shutdown is actually going to have economic effects for years to come. The poor planning of our state leaders and lack of widespread personal protective equipment has forced business, small business in particular, into a downward spiral. We're seeing restaurants and shops closing and closing for good. Government should have stepped up programs to help small business with, for example, online sales. So small business could compete with companies such as Amazon, which has had a devastating effect on local business. We need common sense legislation for business. Just last year, for instance, a bill was passed which increased taxes $2 billion and revenue spending. While the bill eliminated the business entity tax of $250, it actually increased annual filing fees and reduced income tax credits. This was ultimately a tax increase on business while being represented as a cut. I would not shut down the state again, but I would allow people who felt comfortable to take the necessary precautions and operate safely, to interact with their customers, the members of the public who still crave the personal attention only a small business can offer.
Now let's talk about public safety. There's been an increase in car thefts in Rocky Hill and across the state. And recently, the controversial police accountability bill was passed. What can you do at the state level to help protect residents against car thefts and crime? And can you talk about the police accountability bill and if you support it and why?
Great question. As a firefighter and a first responder, this one actually hits home with me. And I take this personally because as a firefighter, when there's a structure fire and we arrive on the scene in our full gear with our air pack and a water line, many minutes before, the police department has already been inside looking for people. And unlike us that wear protective equipment to go into a fire, they go inside with their everyday clothes. These people are heroes. There was recently an article on WFSB3 titled "New Bill Signed into Law Creates Leniency for Juveniles Accused of Stealing Cars." Many people don't know at this point, if you're under 18 years old and you steal a car right in front of a police officer, I said right in front of a police officer, he cannot pursue you. For the period 1/1/19 to 12/1/19 in Rocky Hill, there were 19 car thefts. For that same time frame after the bill was enacted and adopted and approved, of 12/1/19 to today, we have had 42 car thefts in Rocky Hill, showing it has more than doubled. This bill has emboldened criminals with the only penalty for juveniles as classroom time, and then the charges get dropped. Weathersfield Police Chief Citran did not support this bill. Rocky Hill Police Chief Custer did not support this bill. Newington Police Chief Clark did not support this bill. I do not support this bill, yet my opponent did. I support our police. I do not support the new removal of immunity bill. My opponent voted for it. If you have a friend, a family member, or know someone who is a police officer, please call them. Ask them what they think of the bill. Don't just take my word for it. This is too important. Unfortunately, this topic cannot be covered in 2 minutes. And I would once again ask you to please go to Henry Vasel for staterep.com to learn more or to ask any questions you might have. Thanks.
Aside from COVID-19 taking a toll on businesses and residents have had to deal with an increase in utility costs from Eversource, MDC, and the internet companies. What can you do to help keep these costs down? And is there anything you can do to bring us more choices with our utilities?
Absolutely. This is another question as a small business owner that affects me from day to day. Utility expenses are increasing, and they're actually increasing at an alarming rate, as all of you know. with little prior knowledge or input from customers. I would invite the public to regulating boards allowing improved input on decision making. I would put the word public back into public utilities. Connecticut electric rates, as an example, is the third highest in the United States. The first highest is Hawaii. Folks, that's an island. Number 2 is Alaska. It might as well be an island. And number 3 being Connecticut. It does not make any sense to me. The rise in utility costs needs to slow down. Choices of utility companies is a discussion we need to have, and we should have sooner than later. The current providers, however, own the distribution system and can raise the transmission or delivery costs at any time. This may, in fact, increase rates more. I'm sure there are cost savings out there. We need to ask the questions. We need to look into it deeper. And unfortunately, no one has asked the questions so far.
In the past few years, there have been bills introduced in Connecticut for a government-run healthcare option. The insurance and healthcare industries, which are some of Connecticut's largest employment sectors, are against a public option, saying that they will be forced to cut jobs. Are you in favor of a public option healthcare plan? And if so, what will the plan look like? If you're against it, how will you address the rising cost of health insurance?
Great. That's a great question. And that's very important to a lot of people. Healthcare is a topic that's important to me. I've had health problems since I was 9 years old, so over 40 years now. And my hospital bills, even the co-pays, sometimes are in the thousands. So this really hits home with me. Today's healthcare plans are not working. I believe everybody knows it. I do support healthcare reform, but at the present time, I cannot recall any healthcare programs the state has managed and managed well. We should start the reform through the rate review process and increase public input. Healthcare innovations should also be expanded to improve monitoring of prescription drugs, such as opiates, and greater access to evidence-based treatments. We should expand public awareness and education campaigns. I do support telehealth and its expansion. Through healthcare practice rules and license modifications, we can make healthcare more widespread and more easily accessible. On another important healthcare note, there was recently a bill, SB 48. This bill would require prescription drug manufacturers to share product samples with generic manufacturers. This bill did not pass, and Ms. Wood did not vote for it.
Now I've come to a point in the show where we have 3 questions I'm looking to have quicker answers. And the first one is, if tolls are back on the table, would you vote for tolls in Connecticut?
No.
Marijuana is a hot topic, and if this was on the table, would you vote to legalize recreational marijuana?
Not at this time, no.
What is one cost you would cut or reduce from the state budget today?
That's probably the easiest question I've had this evening. The pay and benefits for politicians.
That's everything I have for questions, but in closing, is there anything you would like to add to today's program for the viewers?
Yep, I just want to say thank you to the Chamber and all of you for viewing, also for your time and your support. Once again, my opponent voted for, approved, and passed major police reform in response to a national conversation, not in response to what is actually happening in Connecticut. In a most irresponsible way, they did it in special session with little to no input. This bill has hurt the public and devastated law enforcement even worse. It has emboldened criminals. This isn't the Connecticut we want to raise our families in. You know, I want to tell you something. Ladies and gentlemen, when a first responder like myself, police, fire, EMS, or even our military or National Guard comes to you in a time of need, we are there to help. You will never hear us ask your political party affiliation, where you're from, or your religion. Simply put, we don't care. We are there to help. Please vote for change and common sense November 3rd. And as always, please support our police, fire, EMS, and veterans. Thank you and have a good evening.
Well, Henry, on behalf of the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you for participating in this program today. You can find out more information about the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce at rhchamber.org. And please go support a Rocky Hill business today. Thanks for watching.